السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبي: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا مولانا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى آله وصحبه دائما أبدا صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. We talked yesterday, or finished up sort of, on the story of Nuh alayhi salam. And I know there are a lot of questions which I'm going to start covering, certain specific questions, especially with the verses that deal with the story and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses certain things. The intention here, isn't simply to tell the stories, but it's to give people tools to be able to think and think in the manner which is appropriate to the honor of Allah, His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all of those whom they love. So, I'm going to, certain things I'm going to go over very quickly, and other things I'm going to cover more in detail. There's going to be a lot of repetition because if you, again, as I said, when you look at these stories, the arguments against the prophets and the arguments that the prophets have to use are almost the same or very similar. And you'll see this repeated throughout the Quran. There are questions when you deal with these verses that deal with the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that come up, and as I said, I'm going to deal with those a little later on. I want to talk today about Hud alayhi salam and about Saleh alayhi salam. Hud alayhi salam was sent to the people of Ad. This was a society in southern Arabia, basically in Yemen area, that at that time was kind of one of the most advanced civilizations of the area or of the era. It's interesting because these were the first Arabs, or first society or group of or society that spoke Arabic, and they were basically a myth. If you look at it during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people of Ad were in essence a myth in that there was no physical evidence that they existed. There were stories that had come down, and the stories were questionable, and even the people kind of questioned them. And so the revelation of this story, and if you look at Surah Hud, which deals with this a lot, it's mainly just dealing with that Ad or Ad was sent Hud alayhi salam as their messenger, and they rejected him basically the same way that Nuh alayhi salam's people rejected him. And the arguments again were the same. What makes you better than us? Why you, not us? Basically the leader saying, well, why you and not me? And saying that the followers that are behind you they're just the lowly poor people, while we are the strong and the powerful among society. And if you look at these arguments, though, it's the same argument that Shaitan tried to use against Adam alayhi salam. He said, why him? Why not me? After I've done all of this, then why not? So the same arguments repeat over and over again. And in the case of the people of Hud alayhi salam, so the people of Ad, they had these dwellings that were out in the open, huge, massive dwellings that they had built and they were very proud of. And so, when they disobeyed their prophet and their disobedience went to the extreme, then just like the people of Nuh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the punishment after signs had been made very clear to them, and they still disobeyed and still disbelieved. And in their case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a cloud that was not a cloud of water. It did not have rain in it. And if you start analyzing this, it was a sandstorm that basically just destroyed the whole civilization to the extent that not even a trace remained until recently. And this is something that's mentioned in the Quran. It's not mentioned anywhere else as far as, history books and stuff. And again, these were stories of old among the Arabs, okay, yeah, it might be true, it might not be. The Quran states it with fact, and so within the past 40 or 30 or 40 years is when this civilization, the excavation of this civilization has occurred, so that there's actual physical proof of their existence. And yet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in reciting these verses have told us, centuries before. The people of Thamud were related to the people of Ad, in that they were actually descendants, if you look at the genealogy chain, one brother had some sons and they eventually came and settled in the north of Arabia, and they became known as Thamud. The people of Thamud had dwellings that they had carved into stones, into mountains. And this is where they lived. They had dwellings, or they had buildings out in the plains, but they also their main dwellings were carvings within the mountains, and very eloquent and elaborate structures that they had carved. And the Thamud were very powerful, strong, big, massive people, and very proud of their culture. Same thing, after a while of doing what's right, later generations deviating and starting worshiping idols and doing all this indecency. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them Saleh alayhi salam. The interesting thing about Saleh alayhi salam is that Saleh alayhi salam was from the nobility of Thamud, to the extent that before he declared his prophethood, they were intending on making him their leader. He wasn't just anybody among the society. He was well respected, well honored man who everybody trusted, to the extent, again, that they wanted to make him their leader. And then at the age of 40, he declares that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent him with the message. The same response, before Islam, or before he brings Islam, they're willing to praise him and honor him and do whatever it takes to please him. And now suddenly it's like, how could you say this? How can we leave worshiping these idols? How can you talk against our society? So he went from being one of them to being, or being in the sense of being one of us to one of them. And we see this even today. If you go against the norm of society, you're not among the society. Now you're an outsider. And this is what they did with Saleh alayhi salam. So they made him an outsider. They ridiculed him. They did all of this. Propaganda machine starts turning, and suddenly the man who was known as the most truthful among them, they said, he's lying, or he's doing this or that, and everything, that they can think of. He continues to preach. And again, the same thing. Some of the poor start following him. Not many, but just a few. And the same arguments that, why you, not one of us? And why are your followers just these poor, lowly people? Instead of, us, the intelligent people. Why aren't there any smart people among you? So one day he goes to them while they're having this meeting of theirs, and he says to them, he starts inviting them to Islam, and they say, give us a sign. Give us proof that you are a prophet. So he says, well, what do you want? He says, your choice. He says, whatever you decide, then I will do it. And if I do that, then will you accept me? And they said, yes. So he says, what do you want? So one of them, there's this massive rock that had outcropped from the ground that were close to where they were meeting. And he says, make a camel come out from this rock. And another one says, well, it can't just be any camel. We want this huge, massive camel. And another one says, well, it has to be 10 months pregnant. Gestation period for camels is roughly about 13 to 14 months. So it's 10 months pregnant. They specified that. Yeah. And another one says that, it has to have a lot of wool and it should be giving milk. Yeah. And so he tells them, he says, look, if I do this for you, then will you believe in me? And they said, yes. Of course, to them, it's a joke because they're thinking, this can never happen. And so he says, well, gather all the people. If I just do it in front of you, then you deny it. And what is everybody else going to do? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends his signs, he sends them very clearly. And so they appoint a time and everybody comes. The whole society shows up. And he's standing there and he asks Allah, he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and suddenly the rock splits and this camel, massive camel, comes out. So large that all of them run away. They all run away. Camel is 10 months pregnant. It's already giving milk. And then he tells the people, he says, look, I have done this and by the will of Allah. He says, but no one can harm this camel. If you harm this camel, then the punishment of Allah will come. And the other restriction was that one day this camel will drink from the well. And the next day, the rest of you and the rest of your animals can drink from the well. But on the day that the camel drinks, no one else can drink. On the day that it doesn't drink, you can drink its milk. Or on the day that it does drink, you can drink its milk. So they would drink the water one day and drink the milk from the camel, and the milk from the camel would suffice for the whole society. And the interesting thing, though, is that even after seeing this sign, where there's no doubt, who this man is and how truthful this man is, and the message that he has brought is nothing but the truth, most of them still deny him. You get a few people more that believe in him, but most of them, and especially the aristocrats, those who think that that they run society, they're still in denial. So no, this is magic. They don't deny that he did it. They just say, oh, he did it, but this is magic. And so initially they they agree to the restrictions. Okay, they can't drink water one day, but they can drink it the next day. That day the camel will drink. They can't harm the camel, and the camel will graze and all of this, and it can move where it can go wherever it wants to and do whatever it wants, and no one can harm the camel. And this goes on for a while, and slowly, some more people start accepting Saleh alayhi salam, and then and when the hierarchy sees this, of course, they feel this as a threat to themselves. If society slowly slips away from their grasp and they can't control society like they want to, and we should think, when we're thinking about this and hearing about this, you need to think about what's going on today. So they feel that, their clutch on society is loosening. And so now they start planning. What do we do? And they realize that the one thing that's driving people towards Saleh al-Islam is this continuous living miracle of this camel. Because you see it and you can't deny it. And so one of the old women there, who was extreme. Yesterday we talked about the old women who have Iman, whose Iman Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam praised. But now you have the other extreme. So she exhorts some younger people to maybe do something. And if you look in most societies, most revolutions start from the colleges, because you got young people there who have no experience, uh, and it doesn't take much to they got all this physical energy that they want to use, and it doesn't take much to get them going, without thinking. So the same thing here. So she gets these young people, and basically one main one, and then 8 others. So there are 9 of them that they're going to go and they're going to kill this camel. And so they set up the plan as to how when the camel starts coming down to come and drink from the well, they're going to attack it, and how they're going to attack it, and so everything is set. And so as soon as the camel starts coming down and gets into the right position that they want it in, they come out. And when the camel starts walking toward them, this massive camel starts walking toward them, 8 of them run off. So 8 of them run off and 1 is left. That one, who's, you can envision him as evil incarnate. Strong guy who has no morals, and just, mind is set on one thing, and that's what he's going to do. And so he comes after her, and he hamstrings her. He cuts her the tendons in her leg. So when she falls, and then he cuts her throat. And this camel, Saleh al-Islam refers to as Naqatullah, the camel of Allah. Every camel is the camel of Allah. But there are certain things that are special. Just like every house is the house of Allah, yet we call the masjid, Allah's house. And we call the Kaaba Baytullah, because it's distinction. And so this camel, because of its connection with the Prophet Saleh alayhi salam, is now distinguished, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's referred to in the Quran as Naqatullah, the camel of Allah. So this man, Qudah, he kills this camel. And when the camel is hamstrung and it falls, it starts making this loud noise, warning its offspring. Because 3 months after it came out of the rock, it gave birth to a baby. And that baby now would walk around with the mother. And so so it's warning its offspring. The offspring, when it hears this, it starts making a noise. 3 times it makes a noise, and then it runs back into the rock, as its mother is being killed. And the rock closes that its mother came out of, and it's gone. So now they can't hurt it. Saleh alayhi salam, when he hears this, he comes and he says that, tells them that, what have you done? You agreed to all of these things, but what have you done now? And now after 3 days, you have 3 days you can do, to rejoice or whatever you want to do, and then Allah's punishment will come. So he warns them. He gives them time to repent. They could have repented in those 3 days, but no, they didn't repent. They slaughter the camel, they cut the camel up, and they eat the camel. And then they, of course, 3 days are coming, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts sending the punishment quickly. So their skin starts to change. And then on the 3rd day, because one of their arguments was because he would remind them of the people of Hud. What happened to the people of Hud when they didn't obey their messenger, because these are the descendants of Ad. So he says, what happened to Ad, when they did not listen to Hud alayhi salam? And they said, their dwellings were out in the open, so that's how, this storm destroyed them. Our dwellings, they're in the stone. What can harm us here? And so when he warns them for the 3 days, then he leaves. And as I said yesterday, when the prophets leave, the punishment comes. And this is why the punishment is not coming to us, because Rasulullah ﷺ has not left us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in the Quran. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ يُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ فِيهِمْ. That how can I punish them when you are amongst them? And because they said the same thing. Quraysh said the same thing. The people of Nuh said the same thing. They would say, when the prophets would say, if you don't do this, Allah's punishment will come. They say, oh, bring it. If this is going to happen, then go ahead and send it. Let's see you do it. So the punishment comes. And there's this loud, like thunderclap that destroys, it kills all of them. And they're destroyed. Their remains of their buildings are still there, even today. And when Rasulullah ﷺ was going for Tabuk, he passed by those ruins. And he lowered his head as he's passing by, and he had his camel move very quickly. Some of the companions got some water from the wells there, and they needed some dough, and they filled their water skins with it. And Rasulullah ﷺ told them to throw away the water and to take the dough that they had kneaded with that water and feed it to the camels. Do not eat from it, because it is cursed. This is where the punishment of Allah came. And he said that if anybody goes there, they should not go there unless they go and they cry. If you go, unfortunately, of course, these days it's made a tourist attraction. The government there has made it a tourist attraction. So people go and say, oh, wow, look at this civilization, ancient civilization, and how intelligent they were, and how, the buildings are, and all of this stuff. Which is against the order of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said no one should go there unless they cry. And why do they cry? Because they remember, the punishment that came down on these people. But the other reason that we as the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cry is that we cry that even after us, leaving our messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not following him the way we should follow him, and not loving him the way we should love him, even then the punishment of Allah does not come upon us like it came upon the people of Thamud. So we should cry for that. But again, the arguments have always been the same. When you read the verses that I had asked, people to read, you will see, that there are references to the knowledge of the unseen. And where, the prophets say statements that make it seem like they don't have the knowledge of the unseen. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked Rasulullah to say certain statements that makes it seem like he doesn't have the knowledge of the unseen. Of course, all of those statements are being made to the kuffar, not to the believers. So that's one thing to remember. I'm going to kind of give certain verses that I want people to look at and to understand. And then we're going to talk about this tomorrow, inshallah, kind of in more detail. Again, the purpose here isn't to spoon feed everything. Is to give people the tools that they need when they go out. Because what you will see is, you end up getting the same arguments, but they're put in different perspectives. And if you don't pick up on that, it seems like it's something different. But if you have the tools to deal with it, then it becomes very obvious. When we talk about the honor and the knowledge of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have to understand that he is khayr khalqillah. He is the best of creation of Allah. So he's best in what? He's best in everything. He is khayr khalqillah, the best of the creation. He is, and khayr khalq means best in everything that's good, because you can't be the best in anything that's bad. simple thing here is that, if a thief excels in thievery, he's not the best thief, he's the worst thief. Same thing, if someone excels in lying, he's not the best liar, he's the worst liar. And so Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the best. In what? In everything. In knowledge, in beauty, in his physical attributes, in his character, in every aspect, he is the best. He is the perfect creation of the perfect creator. We have to understand that words, language is something that's limited. When you look at, language, because this is how we communicate, and our minds are limited in our understanding and the way we think, then our speaking becomes limited, so the language is limited. But the same word used for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have the same meaning as that same word being used for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which does not have the same meaning when that same word is used for the rest of creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. And if you translate it literally, it would mean that they schemed and connived, and Allah schemes and connives, and Allah is the best of schemers. Astaghfirullah. Anyone who takes this understanding of this verse is kafir. And there are people who say that, and they planned, and Allah plans, and He is the best of planners. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is planning involves that, okay, I need to see, okay, what do I do next? And for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no what do I do next. For Him, there is no past and there is no future. It simply is. He is. So if you look at the verse, even though the same word is used for the creation, for the kuffar, those who are planning against the messengers, as is used for Allah, but the meaning is totally different. So for the people, it means that they schemed and connived, and Allah has His plan, and His plan is the best. So again, the same word used. The same thing in, the verse from Surah Ahzab that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to recite so often. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. If you look at the verse, it says Allah and His angels send Salah, send blessings on the messenger. But it doesn't mean the same for Allah as it means for the angels. And then the same word is used for the believers, where He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. That, oh, you who believe, you also send blessings. So again, it's not the same. For Allah, the meaning is totally different than it is for the angels, than it is for the believers, even though it's the same word. So I'm going to ask people, and like I said, I'm going to go over this tomorrow in more detail, inshallah. Actually, in detail, I'm not going to go over any of it today. I'm just going to give certain verses to look at. Look at the first 4 verses of Surah Rahman. Surah number 56. Okay, so 57. 55. Surah 55. Surah Rahman, Surah number 55, the first 4 verses of Surah Rahman. Look at that. Look at verse number 114 of Surah Taha, Surah number 20. Look at the last 3 verses of Surah Jinn. Okay. 72. Surah number 72, Surah Jinn. And look at Surah 2, Surah Baqarah, verse 269. start looking at these verses in conjunction with the other verses in Surah Hud, verse number 49 and some of the previous verses there, as well as verse number 188 of Surah number 7, Surah Araf. So this is homework before tomorrow, inshallah. So start looking at that. The intention is that we may be on a slightly different platform tomorrow. Depends. We're trying to work all of this out, trying to figure out what's going to be the best so that most people can kind of tune in, those who wish to, and make it easier for as many people as possible to do that. So we're still, I mean, this is still a process ongoing. There are other verses that I'm going to bring up tomorrow, inshallah, as well, dealing with this, and this is what I'm going to focus on. There are some other questions that have come up. So starting, we're going to have class tomorrow, inshallah, no class Sunday, and then class again Monday. And Monday, I'm going to deal with some of those other questions and kind of shift gear a little bit from the other prophets and come to some certain things that are going on now, dealing with Imam Mahdi and Isa alayhi salam, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and guide us and keep us safe in this environment. As I've said before, the virus is the least of our concerns right now. There are a lot, the way situation is being manipulated is more of a concern, especially for the believers, because there are hard times to come and harder times to come before Imam Mahdi al-Islam finally comes. But to get to that point, it will be a major trial, which has already started. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and help us and fill our hearts with His love and the love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad wa barik sallallahu alaihi. Ya Allah, help us and guide us and fill our hearts with Your true love and the true love of Your beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and raise us up in a condition where You are pleased with us and we are pleased with You, and allow us to recognize Your beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our graves, and allow us to kiss His feet at that time, and allow us, or allow Him to make shifa or intercede on our behalf on the day of judgment, and allow the household of Rasulullah to intercede up on our behalf on the day of judgment, and give us the true love that You require from us, and make it easy for us to pass through these trials and tribulations. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.